This is ANAplus, powered by the African News Agency. You're watching Newsbite, where we give you everything you need to know about Africa now. There's an island nation off the coast of Africa that still has some contested sovereignty and is a true cultural melting pot, a nation formed at a crossroads of different cultures, civilizations, an archipelago noted for its diverse culture and history. Unlike many of the islands off the coast of Africa, it's known as one of the few that was first settled by Africans, Bantu-speaking tribes who came from East Africa. That population was supplemented by Arab and Austronesian settlers no later than the 6th century, with evidence supporting settlement as early as the 1st century. According to pre-Islamic mythology, a jinn dropped a jewel which formed a great circular inferno. This became the Kartala volcano, which created the island of Grand Comoro. How much more of a romantic origin story do you want? The islands of the Comoros were populated by a succession of peoples from the coast of Africa, the Arabian Peninsula and the Persian Gulf, the Malay Archipelago, and Madagascar. Bantu-speaking settlers reached the islands as a part of the greater Bantu expansion that took place in Africa throughout the first millennium. By 632, upon hearing of Islam, islanders are said to have dispatched an emissary to Mecca. But by the time the emissary had arrived there, Prophet Muhammad had already died. Nonetheless, after a stay in Mecca, he returned and led the gradual conversion of his islanders to Islam. Among the earliest accounts of East Africa, the works of al-Masudi describe early Islamic trade routes and how the coast and islands were frequently visited by Muslims, including Persian and Arab merchants and sailors in search of coral, ambergris, ivory, tortoiseshell, gold, and of course slaves. After the arrival of the Portuguese early in the 15th century and the subsequent collapse of the East African sultanates, the powerful Omani Sultan Saif bin Sultan began to defeat the Dutch and Portuguese. Now, his successor, Said bin Sultan, increased Omani Arab influence in the region, moving his administration to nearby Zanzibar, which came under Omani rule. Nevertheless, the Comoros remained independent. By the time Europeans showed interest in the Comoros, the islanders were well placed to take advantage of the settlers' needs. The Portuguese arrived in 1503, with the island supplying the Portuguese fort in modern-day Mozambique throughout the 16th century. Now, in 1793, Malagasy warriors from Madagascar first started raiding the island for slaves. On the Comoros, it was estimated in 1865 that as much as 40% of the population were slaves. France first established colonial rule in Comoros in 1841. Now, the first French colonists landed in Mayotte. Here's where it gets interesting. The next 100 years were turbulent, and eventually France granted Comoros its independence in 1975. But one of the islands in the archipelago, you guessed it, Mayotte, voted against independence. To this day, Mayotte has never come under Comorian sovereignty and continues to fall under French rule as a region of France. Comoros has had a rough few decades recently, surviving no fewer than 20 coups d'etat and attempted coup, with a number of political leaders being assassinated. Now, despite this political turmoil, Comoros continues to be a special island destination. The melting pot of cultures pervades every sphere of life on the islands today, and its volcanic makeup creates otherworldly geography. Its land and seas are teeming with life, and it's home to one specific ancient inhabitant, the coelacanth. Now, in December 1952, a specimen of the coelacanth was rediscovered off the Comoros coast. The 66-million-year-old species was thought to have been long extinct until its first recorded appearance in 1938 off the South African coast. Now, between 1938 and 1975, 84 specimens were caught and recorded. Comoros is one of the smallest and poorest countries on earth. But don't let that discourage you from visiting this spectacular group of islands. The inhabitants speak Comorian, which is a language related to Swahili. They also speak Arabic and French. Now, let us know which one of Africa's islands you'd like us to explore next. Be sure to click the subscribe button down here so you know when our next episode drops. You can also reach out to us on any of our social media. This is Newsbite on ANAplus. We make Africa matter.